What dating stamina astounds me is a recent DM that had me laughing out loud recently. The thing is, when I get an idea in my head, a bit between my teeth, something that I'm really interested in, I run with it. I throw myself in head first. And dating post-divorce has been no different. Dating in Paris post-divorce has added even more flavour to the mix. The city of love is a slippery slope when it comes to dating. It's so easy to get carried away because everything is so beautiful and romantic. So you only have to go for a walking date by the Seine to feel like you fast forward to the mini break phase. I think this can happen anywhere, no matter where you live, but I found the Paris effect to be magnetic. It's very difficult to separate reality from the fantasy, and your perception of what's really going on can be mixed up. It's been a year and a half since I started dating, curious to unravel the mystery of love and decode the opposite sex. I set out on my dating adventures with a very relaxed, I don't really know what I want, I just want to get to know, get to meet new people and hear their stories attitude, and also a very firm I don't kiss on first dates rule. I've been out with around 30 guys at this point, and mathematically I still shouldn't have settled by now. The 37% rule, which is explained in dating terms really well in a podcast that I will leave in the description for you, says that we should sample 37 of the full availability of whatever it is that's available, and then after that we should just choose the next best thing. Basically, there's no need to sample the full 100%. 37 is supposed to be the ideal number. But can love be reduced to the mathematical? What even is it? How do we know when we found it? What is a man's experience of love versus a woman's? These are all really big questions that I have been unraveling on my own and also on my dates. My favourite thing about Latin men, aside from their passion and irresistible accent, is their willingness to speak openly about their emotions, and the topic our beloved city is famous for. This is what I've learned so far. Some lessons have been big, some have been small, but all feel equally relevant. In love is where we're most vulnerable. So, do you date a lot? Has to be the most asked question that I've had on dates, and it sums up the fragility that I've seen in guy after guy. To my utter delight, they are not the emotionless monsters that I once thought they were. They have feelings, lots of them. Yes, we are from different planets, but I no longer believe in sides. I think we have much more in common than we don't. And our vulnerability in love is perhaps our greatest commonality. We all fear the pain that love may bring, and the potential humiliation, rejection, disappointment, and heartbreak leaves us in a frantic spin that whips us into survival mode. Here is where we struggle to be our authentic selves, rely on our ego to keep us safe, and more often than most of us like to admit, feel like we're losing our minds. A man's experience of love is very different to that of a woman's. More logical, for sure, in that I think a man will happily waste your time, but he will never knowingly waste his own. They are a lot more fragile than I feel we have been led to believe. And I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I am personally convinced that they suffer heartbreak much more deeply than women. They also benefit from being in relationships a lot more than women because they get the emotional support that we tend to get in our platonic relationships. They're not encouraged to be emotional or vulnerable in their day-to-day lives, and I really feel for them. Because of this, I think it leads to a lot of repressed emotion and overused gym memberships. When they're in a relationship, men receive the love, care, and emotional support that I think only a partner can provide. And we're now even starting to see the internet, self-development bros promote guys getting into relationships because they have finally cottoned onto this. We mustn't forget that women still tend to carry the majority of the domestic load, so they benefit from this as well. All of the repressed, unprocessed emotions is what I think leads them to experience heartbreak delayed, so they experience it later than we tend to do. And as a result of that, it has become another hard rule of mine not to date a man that is less than a year out of a serious relationship because they're simply not ready. Dating without direction is a disaster. Until recently, I only cared about two things when it came to a potential date. Number one was that I found him attractive, and number two was that he made me laugh. My friends would ask me, what does he do for a living? Where's he based? And I'd just laugh and say, I don't know, I don't care. And I really didn't at that point. And I think that is a testament to how seriously I took dating at the time. There was no long-term goal with my dating. There was no direction. I just wanted to meet new people. I wanted to forget my past, and I figured that I would figure out what I wanted later on. This was a very bad idea in hindsight. It was bad because what we think we want can be very, very different to what we need subconsciously. And if our conscious mind isn't working together with our subconscious mind, we can very easily fall into the wrong hands. The same person will appear again and again until we learn the lesson that they were sent to teach us. Dating apps in particular get a bad rap, but I think they work really well for those who know what they want out of them, whether that is a long-term relationship or casual sex. It's the I don't really know what I want people raises hand that find themselves lost in the dark. I don't think the love technology that we have at the minute is the problem. I think how we use it is. You will never truly know a man until you've slept with him. I think men are designed to chase in the love game. I think that they enjoy this, but I also think they feel under pressure to perform. As the one being chased, it can be fun, but once the chase is over and his true character is revealed, it can feel devastating. Who we are in the beginning of a relationship when we meet under romantic expectations is always the best version of ourselves. And if this is not reaching the bare minimum bar that we set in a potential partner, then expecting things to change later on will only lead to heartache or leave you wishing on dandelions for him to return, which he will, because men are like boomerangs, but he will be unchanged and ready to break your heart all over again. We're drawn to those who express the parts of ourselves we don't want to deal with. This is a direct quote from my personal favourite love expert, Esther Perel, but seeing it play out in real life has been fascinating. They might reflect our need for security, an ego boost, family, adventure. It can be anything, but we fall in love with what that person represents, and that has a lot to do with what we crave or feel that we lack. In essence, we're actually falling in love with ourselves. To love as an adult, we must heal our inner child. There are a lot of wounded children trying to date, and it ends in carnage once the tantrums start. There is no one to call the end of playtime or send us to the corner to think about what we've done or tell us that we've gone too far and now we need to apologise. We're all carrying traumas around, and by the time we reach our 30s, our patterns are well and truly ingrained. This is how we work as humans. It leads us to live our lives from a place of fear. To heal is to change our behaviour, and that is no mean feat, but it is the only way to truly open ourselves up to love, and it's our choice. Vulnerability is where we grow in love. Brené Brown defines vulnerability as emotional risk. I have seen a lot of faux vulnerability in dating. I think it's understandable because in the beginning there is no emotional risk. It feels safe to share personal experiences, to throw ourselves into a situation. But then once the feelings start to arrive, there is emotional risk. Single people in Paris aren't hard to find. Most of us go on enough dates to think that if it doesn't work out with one person, we can simply just move on to the next. But once we've invested a certain amount of ourselves and our time, and feelings begin to develop, things begin to change. Vulnerability becomes hard at this point, and we would rather move on instead of finding out what happens. We're too afraid to see where things might go, so we never find out. We all want the same thing. It is my belief that we all want love, to feel seen, to be touched, to feel accepted for who we truly are. Even one-night stands or casual situationships, I think, are an attempt at this intimacy that we crave, and it's fear that gets in the way. The men who turned out to want such things were some of the loneliest and unhappiest that I have ever met. Fear might be our greatest obstacle, but our desire for love is greater, and it's what keeps us showing up again and again. I think love is what we live for. You can't give up on love if you want it. The illusion of choice in app dating, the fear of missing out, is real. It is so easy to think that the next best thing is around the corner and you don't want to miss out on that, so you should stay in the dating pool. It's easy to think that there is plenty more available and this person can't be right for us, because if they were the one, it should be easy in the beginning. The choice story that we tell ourselves is an illusion or a coping mechanism. I think sooner or later you have to choose one person, commit to showing up, and see what happens. Love is choosing one person and showing up for them again and again, day after day. We get what we're willing to accept. I can often feel ashamed at how little I was willing to accept at the beginning of my dating journey. Sad is maybe a more appropriate word, because I know that it was a reflection of my self-worth at the time. But then I also feel grateful because they all taught me something and they led me to the point where I am now. Seeing the external shifts alongside my internal healing has been astonishing. Learning to say no to the men who couldn't meet my needs was the very, very difficult part. The partner that we choose is a direct reflection of our self-worth, and once we change this, which we can, magic starts to happen. I knew very little about it. I thought I knew a lot about relationships. I thought 10 years of marriage ought to have taught me something, right? And it did, but not in the way that I thought. My husband was 17 years older than me, and I rarely date older guys now. The dynamic in those situations is very, very different. But the education that I've got from my own generation has been one that I very much needed. I thought dating was going to be an absolute breeze, but it turns out I knew very little indeed. But I am grateful for everything that it has taught me. The ending is visible from the very beginning. We can't hide who we truly are. Even when we are on our best behavior, we're constantly giving snippets of ourselves away. At the end of a relationship, you can always look back and see that those snippets that you wish you had seen were in fact bubbling away from the very beginning. Esther Perel, I told you that she was my favourite, says that by the second date with a person, we have already had the argument that we will have throughout our entire relationship. Accepting people for who they are is a gift to them, but also to ourselves, as is walking away when you know there just isn't a connection there, or this person can't meet your needs. Love seems to be the one area of my life that I cannot simplify, no matter how hard I try, but I've become okay with that. Date by date, I have learned to let go and move through love in the only way I think you can, which is freely. To try and control it, I think, is to deprive ourselves of happiness, which we cannot have unless there is pain. The two have to exist together. We can't have one without the other, and to feel both is how we feel our most alive. My final and greatest lesson was that there is always a reason driving our behavior. Behind my initial no expectations mask, I think was the hope in my heart that I would find what I was truly longing for, what I think we all long for: love. I am really curious to hear your opinions on these noticings, any synchronicities that you have, or differences of opinions, anything that you would add, anything that you've learned on your own personal journey. So let me know in the comments.